All right, everybody, welcome back to the Five-Hole Taxi Squad, a five-hole fantasy hockey presentation. We are here with you tonight on October 24th to take you through the weekend Week 3 preview. So, Jay, let's start up the fares and let's get into it. Alright, welcome back everybody to the Five-Hole Taxi Squad. We are your hosts, Craig, Jay, and Alan. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the pod. How are we doing tonight? Full slate of games. How are we feeling?
Always great when the Lightning shuts out a good team.
Johansson stealing Vasilevsky's job, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, he's gonna go somewhere and get paid is what's gonna happen.
Also, why did the Sabres decide to turn on this week of all weeks? My goodness, it's a brutal time in the fantasy world on my teams, facing both Alan and Craig, carrying tons of Tage.
Well, I was going to save that one for a little. I was going to save that one for a little later, but if you want to talk about it now, the Sabres are alive and well, dropping a 6 spot on the Senators tonight with Tage Thompson having 3 points. And as Jay said, he's facing me in one league and Alan in another this week, we both have several shares of the sleepy Buffalo Sabres who look to be, at least for tonight, not asleep anymore. So welcome back to life, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, and Jeff Skinner, who had 2 goals tonight as well. Nice to see. And, Jack Hughes continues to be a revelation for the hockey and fantasy world. After tonight will most likely be the leading scorer in the NHL. He had 3 assists tonight. So, just showing his depth of ability, not only scoring goals, but setting up his teammates for a Toffoli hat trick. Another guy that had been a little sleepy coming out of the first 2 weeks of the season. But Hughes, in fact, had 4 assists tonight, not 3. So he is certainly alive and well and making a push for maybe arguably the best player in the NHL right now. Definitely going to make a push like I maybe stated a few times for the Hart and maybe second in the league in scoring, because I'm sure McDavid's going to have a lot to say about that when he comes back from his short-term injury and probably just goes ham on the entire league. But yes, a full slate of games tonight. While we record on the 24th of October, but we are here to dive into the weekend Week 3 preview. So let us do so, starting with a little bit of storylines, trends, and injury report from around the league, starting with those in the infirmary that are dealing with some injuries. From a fantasy perspective, who are we talking about from an injury perspective? We're talking about Jason Zucker is now week to week in Arizona. Secondary scoring asset in the Coyotes on the second line with Cooley, but hits and shots on goal and a little bit of points upside. I had him in a couple of spots in categories leagues. Guess I'm going to have to steer elsewhere. Hopefully I still have some ads left in those 2 leagues. Patrick Laine, surprise, surprise, his day-to-day status turned into, looks like a stint on the IR. So if I'm not mistaken, that means he is now out for 4 weeks minimum, depending on how he heals up. So to me, that gives even more opportunity for Boone Jenner and Adam Fantilli down the middle of the ice for the Blue Jackets. I think that also gives maybe a little bit of extended run for Kent Johnson, who was kind of getting bounced around the lineup and even saw the press box at the beginning of the year. Oh, and then another one. Surprise, surprise. Taylor Hall, the Chicago Blackhawks, went from day to day to on the IR. Also, I think it's retroactive till Saturday, this past Saturday. So I think he is now unavailable for at least the next 2 weeks, depending on how he heals up. So I think this opens the door for the likes of Taylor Radish, Corey Perry, maybe even Athanasiou. Probably gives Donato even more run on the top line with Bedard, but it'll be interesting to see how Chicago fills that left wing spot now that Hall's going to miss maybe not a significant amount of time, but extended time now. Right now, Daily Faceoff has Nick Foligno projected to be on the left side with Bedard and Tyler Johnson. Throwback to Tampa Bay for Allen there. Yeah, go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, just checking back on the IR rules. I think the 4 weeks is a holdover from the NFL, but for the NHL, I think it's just 7 days. So as long as they are retroactive to whatever, they can be placed back in within a week.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Jay, for that clarification for myself and for the listeners that may have been confused by my confusion. So I will take that one and learn from it as we're talking about injuries moving forward. So Laine and Hall, unfortunately, unavailable for at least the next week. That lifts the other pieces in the top 6 in Chicago and in Columbus for the next week in terms of deployment while they are out. And that takes us to who's back. Sebastian Aho is back tonight for the Carolina Hurricanes in his normal spot. Top line with Turbo Teravainen and Natchez, and also back in his he was not on the top power play, or at least according to Daily Faceoff, but I'm sure he did get some time there. Is the game not going on right now? I think it's going on right now. Oh, it's over. I'm sure he did get some run there. They did not score because they got shut out.
That's why he's back, but it didn't matter. So hopefully
it's good news for the owners of Sebastian Aho. He's back. And on that note, I also saw a report for those that have been holding on Andrei Svechnikov. He was skating today. He was not back playing, but the non-contact jersey was off and he was in a normal jersey. So I would imagine that means he is approaching a return. So keep an eye out on that. If you have him in an IR plus spot or an IR spot, it looks like he is getting closer and closer to being back, and it will be interesting to see how that impacts the top 6 in Carolina when he does return. My guess would be, based on how they were laid out tonight, that probably sees Stefan Nosan getting bumped down from the second line, playing with Kotkaniemi and Seth Jarvis. But we will see, because Stefan Nosan and Jasper Kotkaniemi have actually been their 2 hottest offensive players to start the season. And I saw a tweet on X/Twitter that their chemistry from one of the beat reporters in Carolina has actually looked really good together. So it'd be interesting to see who gets bumped from their top 6 when Svechnikov returns. And it looks like that's getting closer and closer. And last but not least, Pavel Buchnevich returned. As I have mentioned in the past shows, I'm not a huge fan of him. I think he's a little bit overrated in my opinion, but he was back in his normal spot at practice today, and it will be playing tonight with Braden Shen and Kasperi Kapanen, and he's back in his normal spot on power play 1 on the left side of that unit. Other storylines and trends about going on in the league. Some sombering news for the Winnipeg Jets coach, Rick Bowness. He's taking a leave of absence with a health scare that his wife experienced over the last few days. I don't know if this is a fantasy relevant thing, if it impacts the lineup at all, but I think our best wishes and hope that his wife makes a speedy recovery is very important to mention here, because nobody wants to deal with a significant other or a loved one facing something as scary as something unknown as a seizure that could be life-threatening when they are not normally accustomed to having seizures. So our well wishes and our hopes and prayers go out to the Bonus family in Winnipeg, and hope to see him back behind the bench of the Jets as soon as possible, with good news on his wife's overall health and well-being. On that note, we take a deep breath and we get back to a fantasy relevant topic. Anaheim, please free Leo Carlsson. They're managing his minutes, continuing to do so. He is sitting out for the second game in the row. This guy must have weak legs or something, or isn't doing enough squats, because like he needs to rest 2 games after playing 2 games at 19 minutes time on ice for his first 2 NHL games, scoring his first goal, setting up a nice Troy Terry goal. He must need to get back in the gym and do some more squats. His quads must be on fire from his first 2 NHL games if he has to rest back-to-back games for the Anaheim Ducks. But from what we've seen, the general manager say he's going to play only 2 games per week for the first 2 months of the season in this, let's call it time on ice management for the young center for Anaheim. So for those holding him or looking to keep him around in redrafts or keeper leagues, just keep that in mind. You will only get an opportunity to have him in your lineup 2 games out of whatever games the Anaheim Ducks have in a given week until the end of November, until they actually ramp up his usage again. So for me, that most likely in redrafts and even keepers, that probably puts him back on the waivers until you see him getting a full gamut of games and getting full usage in that top 6. I know we talked off a line that maybe there is some understanding about him only being 18, 19 years old, but he looks just as NHL ready as the likes of Logan Cooley and Connor Bedard and the other and Adam Fantilli, the other high end, rookie draft class of 2023, and they're all getting some run. So it's a little bit confusing. I'll go back to my statement in free Leo Carlsson. Come on, Anaheim. Put your best players on the ice. You were one of the lowest scoring teams last year without this kid. Give your top 6 an opportunity to change that with, the likes of Mason McTavish and Frank Veterano and Ryan Strome all off to solid starts for this year. It'd be nice to see them kind of continue that with the help of Leo Carlsson. But I digress. Why don't we get to the weekend schedule for the listeners, Alan? Why don't you take us through that and talk about some streamers for the people?
Yeah. So teams with that sweet spot Friday, Sunday schedule are Buffalo, Minnesota, Jersey, San Jose, and Washington. Buffalo, potentially a sneaky hold for next week because 2 of their 3 games are on off nights. I don't think the first game's till like Wednesday, but if you hold them, you'll definitely be able to get them on your schedule when they do play. The teams that play Friday are Arizona, Carolina, Chicago, LA, St. Louis, Vancouver, and Vegas. And then Sunday, it just besides the Friday, Sunday teams are Calgary, Colorado, and Edmonton. Good streamers. Points leagues are one of Ryan Hartman or Marcus Johansson from Minnesota. They're both lowly owned. It's just kind of which deployment you want to take a bigger chance on, because Ryan Hartman has line 1 with Kaprizov and Zook, but power play 2, and then but Marcus Johansson has line 2, but power play 1 with those 2 guys. Again, deep cut. I just saw he got moved to line 1 and power play 1. Anthony Duclair on the Sharks. Someone on that team might score, and if everyone else is taken, worth taking a waiver on him. It also looks like San Jose stepped away from that 5-forward power play, as most teams typically do after 1 or 2 games. But it looks like their quarterback on that top power play is Kyle Burrows, only 1% owned. Odds are you're going to find him.
Who is that?
If you want to take a chance on him. Exactly. I don't know, a bottom pairing defenseman on most teams. I don't know. That's his name. When I looked at the lines, that was his name. Got to throw it out there for the people. And Casey Middlestat from Buffalo, 21% owned. Line 2, power play 2. That line 2 is with Alex Tuck and Jeff Skinner right now. So don't dismiss it just because
he was my streamer of the week this week, and he had 2 assists tonight, and he had over 17, almost 1750 time on ice.
There you go. And then Colorado, Ryan Johansson. I'm surprised. I figured everyone on Colorado. It's like Toronto syndrome. Like everyone just wants to touch nice things. I'm surprised he's only 14% owned. Line 2, power play
3 goals
1.
in 3 games.
And I
3
think
goals in 3 games.
Yeah, I think he's got one
he
tonight,
scored again
actually,
tonight.
on the power play. So he's passing it to the net somehow. Because that could,
If your league has face-offs, he's even more valuable.
And but right now, Colorado's kind of scrambling those top two lines, and I think the last I saw was that line 2 is with Rantanen and Rantanen and Tatar. This guy just came back, and I saw he's got some pretty sweet deployment on Vancouver. Ilya Mikheyev, 5% owned, left wing, right wing, line 1 with Pettersson. I don't think he's getting power play time, or if it is, it's definitely power play 2. But I think he's actually got a goal tonight. So hey. He doesn't get both sweet days this weekend, but he gets one of them. Big boy bangers. Marcus Foligno. Wow. I was not talking about the Incredible Hulk. Marcus Foligno, left wing, right wing, 13%. He's tracking about 5 hits per game. So great pickup there. Connor Clifton, 9% defenseman. 3 hits and 2 blocks per game so far this season. So he'll get you both. Back to the well for the Caps. Tom Wilson. They're still not scoring, but he'll hit things. On the Sharks, Super Mario Ferraro, 2% owned, block specialist for the most part, but he will get you shots and hits. 0G, some goalie streams out there. Casey DeSmith on Vancouver, he'll see one of St. Louis or New York, hopefully St. Louis. I mean, I know he did well against Edmonton, but I would not want to spot stream against someone playing the Rangers. The LA tandem, Talbot's 51%, so definitely go check. But one of them is going to see Arizona. Actually, and this one might change with Freddie coming off of day-to-day. But one of Ranta or Kochekov potentially sees San Jose on Friday. Keep an eye on who starts that game. And then there's always, if you want, roll the dice at your own risk, one of the Sharks goaltenders. But as far as rolling into next week, I'll hand that over to
just
Jay.
Before Jay jumps into strategy for the people, I just want to preface it, the patience thing. You know, we talked about Tage at the beginning, but from a Washington perspective, because I spoke about them on Fresh Fares, I just want everybody to understand Ovechkin had 14 shots on goal tonight by himself. That is correct, Alan. I'm reading the box score. 14 shots on goal.
Oh no, I saw it. I just realized my wife has him in her cats league, and shots is like the only extra category.
Yes, that only led to 1 goal, but Ovechkin is going to be fine. He had 13 of those shots after the second period. The man is probably getting mad that his team is not doing great. He's going to be fine. You trust your studs, you ride your studs, and you wait for them to wake up. Period. Take it away, Jay.
Yeah, and again, if you have Ovi, be excited to stream more Caps, right? This is a journey to 892 goals, right? That journey is coming 1 goal at a time. My goodness, 14 shots? It's going to be soon.
That's insane. That's insane.
I would say just wait till Patches comes back, and that team's just like a Gatling gun, just firing pucks.
Yeah. Okay, so digging into week 3, weekend strategy, obviously big caveat again is look at your own team. Your team is going to have different slots and spots than my team is going to have different spots and slots and Allen's and Craig's. So definitely look at your own team to see which players and which nights are full and which nights are empty. Generally speaking, you'd want to fill up the empty nights and clear out the nights where you have overly full benches. Now, to give an example about this particular weekend, or this upcoming end week 3 slate, it's a bizarre week where Thursday and not Saturday is actually the most filled up night of the game week. So, for example, 22 teams are playing on Thursday. Only 18 teams are playing on the Saturday, which actually means that for strategy, your main goal is actually to avoid the heavy Thursday and Saturday days. But honestly, with 18 teams playing on the Saturday, you're most likely going to have a full lineup on your Saturday roster anyway. You probably still have space, and you probably could still freely add players onto Saturday nights without being worried that they're not going to be able to make it in. We touched a bit on several Capitals before. That team is so bad right now that regression is just going to hit them so hard, and you want to be on that positive side when they regress back up. At the same time, let's talk about the two teams you need to target in the upcoming schedule, at least. Wednesday, Friday, Sunday only has two teams playing on all those nights. That's New Jersey and Washington. New Jersey is honestly pretty tough in terms of a streaming strategy, mainly because everybody from preseason and draft has already snagged up all the juicy capital. You're pretty much looking to see if somebody was impatient and dropped Dawson Mercer. I can't really imagine a player that is dropped that's better than Dawson Mercer, but would make it onto your waiver wire. Now, obviously, if there's a crazy, crazy league where Timo's super slow start has somehow landed him on the wire, that's a taco league and you can take whomever. But New Jersey, target whomever is available there. I think Siegenthaler is a common name. Palat is also a common name. If you can grab those guys, they'll get you 3 nights. You probably have 3 free nights because you wouldn't have gotten those if you had anyone else riding on your bench. Washington is the real juicy target because so many good fantasy names are just available. Tom Wilson, as Alan mentioned, 45% owned. The guy is a human pinball. 3+ hits every single night. He hasn't even gotten the scoring touch quite yet, but he's going to get there. He's not going to finish the season with 0 goals. And if there's any night where regression or week where you're banking on his regression to come back, it's these next 3 nights. So Tom Wilson's a great, great target. Dylan Strome, I couldn't believe it. I saw that he was 33% owned previously. Now he's 25% owned on a better off-night schedule in week 3. If you're one of the managers that dropped Dylan Strome, go back and click add. Click the big plus button and get him right back onto your team to boost him back up to 33%, because this is the week that you don't want to drop him and have him on your team, especially when he's getting line 1 with Ovechkin and power play 1 with Ovechkin. As Craig and Alan just mentioned, 14 shots. He's not getting those shots just because he's walking up to the net and shooting by himself. Someone is passing the puck to him. You need Capitals players, especially this week. Now, there's so many other guys, and the rest of the Caps power play 1, aside from John Carlson, I think is still on waivers. Like TJ Oshie, Evgeny Kuznetsov. These guys are like 13, 11% owned. They're getting PP1 time with Ovi. And again, this week, go snag those players. Go make sure you take them. Now, at the same time, I will also caveat that with this week being kind of strangely angled with the heavy weighting of nights on Thursday instead of the remainder of the week, you can actually have a double dip stream at. Now, I'm going to describe it a little bit, which means just like Monday only had 2 teams playing, Buffalo and Montreal, Wednesday also only has 2 teams playing. That is the 2 golden teams that you should stream and target this week, the New Jersey Devils and the Washington Capitals. So if you get either of those players, you can choose, you can choose to add New Jersey players or Washington players or both and then hold them for the rest of the week. What you also could do is you could add them for the Wednesday play, and then you can double dip again and target teams that are going to play 3 of the remaining 4 nights of the week. Now, there's only 2 teams that fall into that category, okay? The Minnesota Wild play on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. The San Jose Sharks play on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And they're the only teams that can play those 3 out of 4 nights. So what you could do is hopefully by the time the episode airs, you can quickly scramble on and snag those Devils, quickly scramble on and snag those Capitals, and then right afterwards, the night after, on Thursday morning, you take a Minnesota Wild, or you take a San Jose Shark. Now, there is a correct answer in terms of which player you need to take out of those two teams, and that player is Tomas Hertl. Line 1, PP1, he basically is... He's the less talented version of what Timo Meier was on the Sharks the past 2 seasons. There is nobody else that is going to get his, I guess, minute-munching vacuum, and Tomas Hertl is 45% owned, which means in half the leagues where he's somehow not, on Thursday morning, smash those ad buttons and get Tomas Hertl onto your team. He will be the difference between you winning week 3 and losing week 3. And he's a center, which means he's discardable right after the good week is over. And the other players just, I don't know, like the rest of the San Jose power play is really not worth it, but Barabanov might fit in on some parts of your lineup. I think Super Mario Ferraro is also bouncing around. Like, so maybe you can take him too. The Wilds, take whomever is left and best. I think there's Brodin hanging around. He gets power play 2 time. But aim and target those teams for the purpose of maximizing your week, and target any power play 1 players. If we're just going to rattle off a couple of players for the Minnesota and San Jose purposes, I'm just going to scroll through and look quickly. There's Jonas Brodin, Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman. All these guys are 30% owned or less, right? So they should be there. If they're not, pick the next guy up. I am going to say this too. This is almost preempting the weekend turn for week 4. But there are no teams that play back-to-back on week 3 Sunday and week 4 Monday. So there's no way you can double dip it and get, I guess, like a player that can snag on and win you your week 3, and then also give you an early lead on week 4. If there's a TLDR, it's Capitals. Okay? Get any Capitals, best Capitals you can get. Get Devils. Get the best Devils you can get for the Wednesday. Flip for San Jose Sharks or Minnesota Wild players. You should be able, and you should have room to hold on to those players from those 4 teams, and that should maximize the rest of your week. That was a lot. I'll send it back to you, Craig.
We're going to let Jay take a deep breath now. We're going to check in on the Taxi Squad watch list dudes.
Taxi!
And we're 2 weeks in now, and I had a conversation with a listener today in terms of how to identify watch list guys now with waiver wires starting to thin out a little bit. Yes, you're trying to keep your eye on, that whoopsie drop, that frustrated GM dropping guys with higher value. But I would imagine that that's not going to happen as regularly as one would have seen probably last week, starting into next upcoming weeks and months. You would be holding those higher value players and looking for your value streams. And I told this listener, and it's not the end all and be all, but it is a good indication of potential offensive output. There's other factors in this, but it's shots on goal. Okay. You also want to consider, where they're being deployed. Is it line 1? Is it line 2? Is it line 3? Are they getting any power play 1 time? But a good indication of any offensive upside is shots on goal. And for me, that's looking for people through 2 weeks that have 2 or more shots on goal per game, if not pushing that 3 or more shots on goal per game. So I'm just going to run through some names and some deployment for the consideration of the people out there. Not all of them have huge point outputs over the first 2 weeks of the season. However, they have quite the elevated shots on goal, which is a good indication of potential future offensive output. And I think the ones that I will mention also have some solid deployment, at least at even strength, for it to actually be attainable and somebody you could stream when required, or when that team has a good schedule in an upcoming week and feel pretty confident about that selection. We spoke on Trevor Moore of the Los Angeles Kings. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, he has 4 goals, 14 shots on net, 3 hits, and 1 block. He's running on the third line with the Kings with Philip Danault and, Arthur Kaliev. And he gets second power play unit run there. And as the Kings roll their lines, and I think we mentioned this the last time we spoke of him, he gets somewhere between 16 to 19 minutes of ice time on a given night. And then they do roll their power plays pretty evenly. He's only left wing eligible, but I think he's a viable, at least early on in the season, I think he's a viable stream candidate when the Kings have a good schedule. Second taxi squad member, Scott Layton of the Philadelphia Flyers. Currently, they're 2C, not getting any power play time, but he does get penalty kill opportunity, and he's getting somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 17 minutes time on ice. He has 4 shots through the first 2 weeks of the 4 assists through the first 2 weeks of the season, 1 shorthanded point, 19 shots on goal. This is the interesting one if you're looking for a forward to help you in categories leagues. He has 6 hits and 6 blocks, centering the second line. So they definitely use him in a more of a defensive shutdown role, but he has 19 shots on goal through the opening 4 or 5 games for the Flyers. And he's playing with Tyson Forrester and Travis Konechny, their best player at even strength. So he's certainly somebody who we will keep an eye on in terms of the taxi squad watch list. Colton Sissons, the scissor man, a little bit lower on the opportunity from a shots on goal, but he's their second line center, centering the line currently with Gustav Nyquist. I don't even know who the other guy is, Samuel Fogum, but he scored tonight again, actually, against Vancouver. So he has 4 goals in the first 2 weeks of the season, 1 shorthanded point, 10 shots on goal. And then again, if you are in a categories league, which a lot of people are, he has 9 hits and 5 blocks through the first 2 weeks of the season. So those first 2 guys the second and third guy, Scott Layton and the Scissorman, both very viable streamers with point upside, shots on goal upside for your category coverage from a forward perspective. A couple more guys here that are off to pretty decent starts for their team. Thomas Novak, we've touched on him before, doesn't do a whole lot in the category coverage, but an upcoming young player on the Predators. He's currently their third line center, centering Luke Evangelista and Kiefer Sherwood. He has 4 goals, 13 shots on net to start the season, getting around 15 to 17 minutes time on ice. He's certainly somebody who could push for more top 6 minutes as the season goes along. I would imagine the Scissor Man is not going to maintain this hot output in terms of his offensive capabilities. Tommy Novak showed he could run with the top 6 last year. I would imagine he will get some run there and some power play time as the season goes on. Another, Alan hit on Ryan Johansson, Ryjo, very viable. You want somebody who's inside and playing with nice things and elite players. You can't get much more elite than Mikko Rantanen of at even strength, and you can't get much more elite than playing with Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and Valerie Nichushkin on Power Play 1 in Colorado as well. And it, like I said earlier, if you're in a face-offs league, he has even more upside, especially playing in a defensive role. He's actually been shooting at a pretty good clip.
Well, he's got 2. He had a second goal tonight.
Oh, he scored 2 tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Ryan Johansson, is he going to join the Monahanessence or whatever the hell you guys are calling it? The Johannesance. So in the first 2 weeks of the season, Ryjo has 8, 10, 12, 15 shots on goal. And that's not really his bread and butter. So that's really interesting. He has an interesting caveat in terms of time on ice. He's kind of gone from 14 and a half to 18 and a half. It's kind of been all over the place, depending on, I would imagine that would be dependent on situation and game script there in Colorado. They're probably using him in a more of a shutdown role, trying to win faceoffs in their own end with his assistants. Definitely some upside there, playing with some of the most elite players in the league and only 15% owned and on a bit of a hot streak. Joe Foligno of the Detroit Red Wings. You're not going to find a hotter team in hockey right now, even though they're in a bit of a grind tonight. He also scored again tonight. Through the first 2 weeks, he has 3 goals, 1 assist, 7 shots on net. Again, another forward that can help you categories-wise. He has 4 hits, 3 blocks, centering the third line with Daniel Sprong and David Perron tonight. Again, another guy, Daniel Sprong from the Detroit Red Wings. 2 goals, 2 assists, 13 shots on net to start the season. You know, both of them are not getting tons of time on ice, but probably getting opportunity to score some secondary points for the Detroit Red Wings, with now teams starting to solely focus on that, shutting down that top line if they even can, because of how hot Larkin and DeBrincat have been. Some other interesting pieces for the taxi squad watch list going into week 3's weekend and into week 4. Cam Atkinson, 3 goals, 14 shots on net, 4 blocks from the Philadelphia Flyers, rolling on that top line with Couturier and Owen Tippett, also getting power play 1 deployment, only 5% owned. Same with Taylor Radish, 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 shorthanded point, 13 shots on net from Taylor Radish. And again, another forward that can help you in category coverage. 7 hits, 7 blocks to start the season. So doing a little bit of everything. And with the Taylor Hall injury, it'll be interesting to see if he gets a little bit more run on the top line. He's currently with Lucas Reichel and Athanasiou on the second line, according to Daily Faceoff, and on power play 2. But with Ryan Donato being demoted to the 4th line center role, I would imagine he might get rotated out of power play 1 at some point. So that might mean some more opportunity for Taylor Radish to produce offensively. That is it from a watch list taxi squad standpoint. So any closing remarks on week 3 weekend, boys, before we sign off for tonight?
Travis Sanheim is not this season's Montour, guys. Like, despite what you might read on Reddit.
I have added him in several places. I'll be interesting to see what he does over the next little bit. I might hold on to him just because of the deployment, and he does have a little bit balanced approach in terms of hits and blocks compared to some of the other power play fringe quarterbacks that are out there. So he does at least contribute categories wise. I'm going to give a shout out again to Pavel Michkov from the Anaheim Ducks. Another point tonight, 2 shots on goal already 13 and almost 14 minutes through 2 periods. This kid is making a statement that he wants to hold on to this deployment he's getting, regardless of Jamie Drysdale, also now on the IR. Another guy that I want to put on the taxi squad that I missed in my list was Matthew Poitras. Is that his last name? Matthew Poitras? That's what I'm going to call him. Second line center for the Boston Bruins. One of their better prospects. He made the team out of camp. He started as their third line center, played well enough to push Charlie Coyle down the lineup. You know, he isn't off to the hottest start, but he has, through the first 2 weeks of the season, so that's 6 games, including tonight, 10 shots on goal, 2 goals, and 2 blocks. You know, he's not getting the greatest deployment right now, but I think it'll just increase as the season goes on. His last game was just over 16 minutes. He's had a couple of 14-minute games. He's going to have a couple of 12-minute games. Pavel Zacha did score tonight, but he hasn't been off to the best start, being their line 1, power play 1 center. They just put Marchand up on that top line with him and Pasternak tonight. If Zacha can't produce with those 2 guys on his wings, I think Poitras might get a look at 1C at some point in the near future, since he's already pushed Charlie Coyle down the lineup with his positive play. So something to keep an eye on from the Boston Bruins. making an early impact and starting to push for a little bit more time on ice and minutes moving forward. Jay, any closing thoughts from you, buddy?
Re-mention again is that those Carolina defensemen, Brady Shea and Jacob Slavin, they're still kind of hanging around in certain leagues. Some leagues, obviously, they're getting quickly snatched up, but they are not getting power play time, but they're scoring a lot of 5-on-5. It might be worthwhile to just pick them up and see if they are available and see one, because Brent Burns might not, and Dmitry Orlov, they might not hold on forever if those guys continue producing 5-on-5, and if, again, they didn't score not only on the power play today, Carolina, they didn't score at all. So if that dip in play comes around and you're holding on to Slavin or you're holding on to Shea, maybe power play time comes around and maybe that production can become a sustained fantasy output as opposed to just a flash in a pan. And so if they're doing it without getting the power play anyway, it might be worthwhile to, pick them up and hold on and see where the ropes go.
Yeah, and then, the last caveat, and we'll close with this again, and Tage Thompson just proved it tonight. He is alive and well, regardless of his time on ice. We're not even going to go into that. Tyler Toffoli also broke out tonight with a hat trick. We sent out, the squad sent out on Twitter/X earlier today, just some of the cold players coming out of the first 2 weeks of the season, all supposed to be, drafted probably by you or by the three of us in your top 3 rounds in redrafts and potentially keeper leagues, or you kept some of these players in keeper leagues. They're all going to be fine. And our closing note on that, for those that are frustrated, Ovechkin with 14 shots on goal tonight. Come on. Like, he's going to be all right. There might be some fringe guys you might be concerned about, and we'll keep an eye on those and keep everybody updated. But our closing thought for those ice cold players that are studs or supposed to, you have high draft capital in, or you kept them, is yes, the buy low window is open on them. But if you are looking to move them as a frustrated general manager, either don't and be patient, or make sure you get real value. Do not do something silly that could hurt you moving forward in terms of your ability to compete because you moved one of your key pieces that just need a little bit of time to get going. And I saw an interesting fact on Tage Thompson. He only had 1 goal through the first 7 games last year. 1. And then he exploded and scored 50 and had 90 points. So he's going to be fine. He now has 2 goals through 7 games. He's going to be fine. The only one out of all of those guys that I'm still a little bit concerned with, honestly, the ones that we listed today on Twitter/X, is Timo Meier. He's shown a little bit of signs of life the last couple of games, but he only had an assist tonight, no shots on goal, no hits. Like, what is going on? Like, that is not the Timo everybody knows and loves. I'm not saying anybody should, check out of the Timo Meier hotel. You want to hold because of what's going on in New Jersey and how they're playing, and now they're, Toffoli's now waking up and Jack Hughes is playing out of his mind. Sorry, Meier had 2 hits tonight, but no shots on goal and only 15 minutes of ice time.
And I think following up on that, it's the idea that if you are trading for somebody of value, a big indicator of value is their deployment. A big indicator of their value is their ability not just to get, a goal or an assist or whatever, but it's exactly as Craig said, like, track their shots on goal. If you shoot...
If you're Robert Thomas.
Well, the old adage absolutely is that you can't score a goal without a shot. I don't know if they count tip-ins, but we're not arguing semantics here, right? Like, the goal is if you are shooting the puck, you're going to put up opportunities for you to score goals, for you to put up power play points. You need the ice time. You need coaches that aren't like Brindamore, coaches that aren't like Torts, who throw star players into the grinder, into the ringer, and bench them based on unperceived or not disclosed or undisclosed reasonings. You want the guys that are going to get the minutes, that are going to get 22 minutes or 20 minutes of ice time no matter what. If they post an unhappy photo on Instagram, the coach is going to acquiesce and give them an extra minute or two to keep them happy. That's the big difference for Timo at the end of the day. He needed to be the guy vacuuming up all those minutes in San Jose. They were going to play him or they were going to play one of the mascots that showed up for work, right? There was nobody else on the Sharks. Who is he going to take the spot on? Or who on New Jersey is needing him the same way the Sharks are?
Just before Jay goes on a rant here, because Alan walked me off the Timo Meier sell low edge, and for the listeners out there, you do not trade him yet without value. Okay? You hold on him, because Alan's point is clear. They gave him the bag. They are going to give him opportunity to produce, regardless of how it's looked early in the season. It's coming. It will come. Be patient. I'm going to be, because I have him in so many pieces. And we're going to sign off on this and before we park the van cab. Hot guy check-in and a single guy. Shane Gostisbehere.
Ooh, scorching hot, baby. I'm loving it.
Except
when I don't love it.
Fire right now. And yes, I know he's not available, but if you can somehow get him, he has 2 more power play points tonight. He has 3 points tonight, and the game's not even over. He is on fuego. He has 8 shots on goal in the last 2 games for the Detroit Red Wings.
Gostisance.
Yeah. There might be another Gostisbehere. There's another guy you two can add to your Renaissance thing.
Just have
list.
a Renaissance fair.
Yeah. So through the Red Wings opening 7 games, he has 3 goals, 5 assists, 10, 12, 14, 15 shots on goal. He has 6 of those points on the power play. Red Wings to the moon, to Alan's despair, and we will sign off on that. Let's go, Red Wings making the playoffs, and DeBrincat leading the league in goal scoring, and Larkin breaking 90 points. Let's go.
Also, in terms of not hot guy check-in, but just as teams in general, we still have undefeated teams. 3 Bruins, Avalanche, I guess Boston Bruins, Colorado Avalanche, Vegas Golden Knights. If there's any guys or they have a good streaming week, definitely snag some of those guys.
All right, Jay, park the van cab, turn off the fares, follow us on Twitter. You'll find our handles in the show notes. Like, subscribe, give us 5 stars wherever you get your fine podcasts. If you are in the fantasy community, which I would imagine you are, and you're listening to us, jump in the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Discord. If you haven't yet, check out Mike Rogerson's Rogers Limited Series, the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Guide, to help those that are new at fantasy or new at running leagues. As a commissioner standpoint, he's just released episode 5, I believe yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, of the 7-episode series. They're short, they're sweet, there's some really good informative information in there. Give him some reviews on that content. And as always, the Van Cab and the Taxi Squad will be back real soon with our Week 4 preview. And watch out for Quick Fares, our reflection on Week 3, and all things fantasy and hockey coming to you early next week. And we will say goodnight, world. It's all love. We will be back soon. Shane Gostisbehere to the moon.
Is this limo of a barf bag?
It's okay. At least you have Jonas Johansson.
That's right.
Shutting out everybody right now.
Shutting out my hopes of winning this fantasy week against Alan.
Tage Thompson is alive. Good night, everybody.
We'll pick you up later.